Ever since I pulled Kirara, I noticed something about Dendro characters. They will always be good as long as you're running them on a dedicated Dendro reaction based team. These reactions are Bloom, Hyperbloom, Burgeon, and Spread. I will not really dive too much into Burning, as this elemental reaction isn't very good in my opinion. It's also not used as often as the other ones, but the same concept applies if you like to use the reaction. Now, people are generally concerned about whether they should wish for a specific Dendro character or not, as they want to know if the character is worth their Primogems. That's totally understandable. Usually when they ask others their opinions, they get an answer such as, just pull for who you like, which is generally not very helpful. I used to tell others this, but I've started to be more specific when it comes to offering advice about pulling characters. However, I think it's fine to say pull for who you like when it comes to Dendro characters because of how strong Dendro reactions are with very little investment. This means that Dendro characters being good or not doesn't have as much of an impact as other characters of other elements would. In this video, I'll be explaining the various reasons why Dendro characters can never necessarily be bad due to how Dendro elemental reactions work in Genshin. First, to understand why Dendro characters will always be good, you have to understand how Dendro reactions work. Now, I'm assuming most of you know how it works, but here's a quick explanation. Dendro reaction damage scales off of two things only. 1, the character's level, and 2, their elemental mastery. Dendro reactions cannot critically strike, and they also ignore the target's defense. This means that the only thing that determines how much damage a target takes from Dendro reactions is how high their elemental resistance is. So knowing that, I'll start off with Spread. Spread adds a flat amount of damage to the original attack when triggered. This elemental reaction cannot critically strike, but the actual attack can once the damage is added on to the final amount of damage. Since Dendro reactions only care about the level and elemental mastery of the character who triggered the reaction, this basically means any Dendro character can have a terrible kit, but still manage to do lots of damage with Spread reactions. Keep in mind that after Spread's damage is calculated, the final damage is affected by other properties such as crit, Dendro damage, the target's defense, and their elemental resistance. But for Spread's original calculation, it works like other Dendro reactions. This same concept applies to Normal Bloom and Bountiful Cores created by Nilou's passive. As long as the character has elemental mastery and is level 90, they will be useful with any of these elemental reactions. Realistically, the only thing that matters is how good their Dendro application is. So far, as of 3.7, all of the Dendro characters seem to have a solid amount of Dendro application, making everyone useful when running any Dendro reaction based team. Now this leads me to the next point with two other elemental reactions, Hyperbloom and Burgeon. These reactions do the same amount of damage, but Hyperbloom is generally better to run since Aggravate and Spread are much better than Burning. Also, not to mention that Hyperbloom's homing mechanic is much more consistent than Burgeon. Anyway, going back to Normal Bloom for a moment, a Bloom Core is created when Dendro meets Hydro, or vice versa. Assuming the Bloom Core explodes, this Bloom Core will do damage based on the level and elemental mastery of the character who triggered it. However, when triggering something like Hyperbloom, the damage is only based on the electro character's level and elemental mastery, not the level or elemental mastery of the character who originally triggered Bloom. This means, for example, that if you trigger Hyperbloom with a level 90 electro character from a level 1 Kirara's Bloom Core, it's the same thing as if a level 90 Nahida created the Bloom Core. The Hyperbloom damage only cares about the electro character's stats, not the stats of the character who triggered Bloom. The same concept applies to Burgeon, only the Pyro character's stats matter when determining how much the Burgeon explosion will do. Again, this means that a Dendro character can have the worst kit ever, but because Dendro reactions work in a way where any Dendro character can reach level 90 and hold elemental mastery artifacts, this means that technically no Dendro character can ever be bad, assuming you run them in a Dendro reaction based team. The only way they can actually be terrible is if their Dendro application is slower than Eula's rerun, but none of the roster seems to struggle to apply Dendro to their targets consistently. So what does this mean for wishing? If you want to go for a Dendro character because you like them, then go for it. It doesn't matter if they're regarded as bad characters, because Dendro reactions will be able to cover any weaknesses they might have. At the time of making this video, only Dendro characters have this luxury of being able to remain strong even with an underwhelming kit, due to how strong Dendro elemental reactions are. The only other element that's close to being able to get away with it is Animo, since it also utilizes Elemental Mastery for Swirl, as well as having access to 4-piece Viridescent. Otherwise, the other 5 elements require you to invest a lot more in them in order to get the most benefits, while Dendro seems to require very little investment for a lot of power. Although Electro can trigger Aggravate as well, so I guess you could also add Electro onto the list. Anyway, once again, any Dendro character will always be good because of how Dendro reactions work. The only way I can see Dendro falling off a cliff is if Hoyoverse introduces some crazy mechanic, but I don't think they will. And with Fontaine around the corner, I honestly expect Dendro reactions to become better, not weaker. We'll have to wait and see. Hopefully this was helpful to you. Don't be afraid to pull for any Dendro characters you like. They will always be good because of Dendro reactions. Thanks for watching.